Welcome back to the Dark Elves Abridged. In the previous part we saw us taking down an invasion from the Lizardmen and defeating an elf invasion as well. After trouncing those guys we went on to take revenge on those Quest Skaven and reclaim the Kraken Helm. Or did we? To some extent all of these things actually didn't happen because as it turns out, when I went on to play some more of the game, it had just gone through the updates with that whole Proving Grounds beta thing that they added to the game. And for whatever reason this caused many of my saves to just crash the game upon loading, but not all of them curiously enough, and the most recent one that still worked was about 8 turns back from where we were before. So we're now at a situation where I think I was 2 parts ago, where I was defeating an earlier Lizardman invasion. And as you can see, I have activated the hacks. I've given Locke here unlimited movement and auto-resolve God mode. This actually doesn't stop you losing auto-resolves, it just means if you lose, your troops survive. So there you might have spotted, I actually lost the Sword of Cain due to losing an auto-resolve, then got it back. So yes, I'm just going around trying to reproduce the save I had before. I thought I'll go around and auto-resolve the armies I know I did defeat after this, and kind of put us vaguely back where we were at the end of the last part. There was one problem with this though. I wanted to take out that elven army that we defeated in the last part, but it turns out the hacks for auto-resolve God mode don't work for naval battles, it turns out, so we actually do lose the main army here, and I had to reload and re-attempt rebuilding the save. It will look slightly different to the end of the last part because there were a few turns that I didn't show yet, in which basically this arc ran up to roughly where I'm putting it here. It was running away from an orc fleet, but in this case, because I'm doing the move in 1 turn, we've easily escaped the fleet, and I'm just going to put it roughly where it was, up by the Cult of Pleasure, our witch hag allies. I think I do get an alliance with them at some point, or I did in the previous attempt, and in this one I forgot to do it, and I'll get it again at some point, I should say. One other thing I was doing in the real timeline was changing my armies to have good units in them. Luckily with the hacks we can do that real fast, so we can switch over the units to still have the stuff. I don't have like infinite money though, so I did actually still use up the resources to do this time, so it was less cheaty than it probably could have been. And of course things are going to go a bit differently because the diplomacy in the Total War games in general is RNG based. So this time we end up at war with the Cult of Sotek because of the Skaven, many turns earlier than originally planned. And this is also while we're still at war with the Itza, because I didn't get peace with them in this timeline. I did still defeat the same number of their armies, they just didn't want peace, I guess because we're earlier in the war technically or something. Here I am setting my troops up in roughly where they were at the end of the last timeline. I had them raiding just over the border. We weren't actually at war with Sotek yet in that timeline, but we are now, so maybe they'll actually come out and stop us. Another thing we did, which we haven't done yet in this timeline, is stop that elf invasion, because really it didn't happen. Their troops didn't land this time after a couple of turns. But I still wanted that army dead because I don't want them to come back and I'll have to deal with them later or something. So I sent out this one general, hoping to use this imperfect auto-resolve God mode at sea to just sacrifice the general to also take down the elves. Problem was, I couldn't work out where they were, but then I had a thought. I figured maybe they're actually targeted onto my black arc, and because I've sent it up to the corner of the map, it's following them. And yes, that does appear to be the case. So now we can just charge in with our one lord. Don't get a very good balance bar, suffice to say. However, we actually win even without losing the lord, so not sure what's up with the whole auto-resolve God mode at sea rules. The enemy almost lose. They lose everything except Tyrion, who survives with 1 health for whatever reason. But if I auto-resolve it again, then he does die. So there we go, now we've taken down the army that we took down in the last part, and that sort of happened again in this timeline, so it wasn't a complete waste. Now from this shot onwards we are back with hacks off, although we are going to still benefit from having done the hacks, because I've got a load of experience on some of these units. Some of them are on gold, the whole load of them actually. But anyway, let's get back to the war. So I'm starting to move up on Sotek with our 2 armies down here. We're taking a load of attrition. I eventually worked out it's because they've done some kind of rite that forces me to take attrition in their territory. But that aside, we're doing the classic raid and ambush combo strategy to see if their main army nearby will come out of the town. As for Locke here, up here, I decided to go north with him. Firstly to go after that tiny army that's hanging around, but also to go after the 2 Sotek territories to the north of that area. In the Sotek turn, the army I was trying to draw out actually goes east. Looks like they're just going to go straight for an attack on me with that move. So I got them out of the town, but I haven't defeated them, and that was what I really needed to happen. Their other tiny army up here just walked off. I was more concerned with these new Lizardman armies that have shown up from another Lizardman faction nearby. I thought maybe they were about to attack me since they've walked into my lands, but checking the diplomacy I saw they were at war with the Skaven, and figured maybe they're just walking past, in which case I'll let them go because I don't want to start anything there. We've got other projects to attend to, such as going up to our old haunt at Tlencan. No army defending it there, so Lockyer can raid his way over and then have a nice attack. Also going to be making a trash stack with the general who took down the Elves earlier, just to have them as a spare army to use for things like mopping up that tiny Lizardman army. Now as for the Sotek main force, I thought, well, they may be coming to attack me, there's nothing we can do about that, but we can just attack them. What I thought I would be able to do is swoop in here and auto-resolve the town with both of my armies. One army in there gives me a very bad balance bar. Figured when I threw the second one in, maybe that would be okay because we'll have so much more stuff than them. But no, it's actually still pretty bad. I didn't really believe we had this level of disadvantage. And I was about to do this manually, but then I started thinking I guess my armies are actually mostly ranged units, come to think of it, and attacking the walls might be difficult because our melee potential isn't that high, especially with these two armies that don't have a load of nice heroes and dragons or anything like that to play with like Lockyer's. So I ended up just leaving the siege going. Here's what Sotek do. Their small army from the north comes down, and then their main force turns back to stand nearby. The garrison sallies, giving us this field battle, more suitable to our ranged focus. However, we're fighting everything at once, so best not to do that. I break the siege, and that's the end of that really. Their army's back inside the town, and now actually doing the siege will be much harder, so we're kind of back where we started with that little war situation. At least Lockyer has made some progress. We have successfully taken Tlencan. Here I almost didn't loot it because I don't really want them to rebel, and they certainly will rebel with the debuff you get from loot and occupy. However, I can't deny the troops their precious plunder, so I had to go in and loot it just for my own personal amusement. That means we'll have to fight some rebels around here soon, but that trash stack I'm making is perfect for that sort of thing. Instantly destroying a building there to make room for a garrison building because that place may just be attacked by the Elves again soon. After checking that Shadesman had Lightning Strike unlocked, I came to kill the tiny Lizardman army sitting near the settlement, using Lightning Strike to cancel out any reinforcements. That's easy enough, although it does mean I'm now sitting in the settlement's zone of control, so I have to besiege it. That's not a very good situation, so we're certainly not doing anything with this. I just retreat, but I retreat to on the other side of the settlement from where I started, meaning I now can't really work with the other army. The two armies have been effectively split up. I don't think it was really worth taking down that tiny stack to get to this situation. So I thought might as well lean into being split up and actually just go in different directions. So the army to the south goes further south where there is another Lizardman settlement that I can go after. I'm actually just out of the enemy's movement range because they're on forced march right now. When they're in regular attacking stance, they won't be able to attack that army, so we can get away. That's not going to be the case for Shadesman. I probably should have done an ambush here, but instead I just stood outside the town and raided. To some extent I thought, well, if they come out and attack me, it's not exactly a overpowering one-on-one battle. We do have all of our shades with Shadesman's buffs, which I forget what they were, but in some way they're better for being in that army. That doesn't happen though, so that's a moot point. Their army actually goes south. It's pursuing Yadus, and we'll just keep running away. Looks like Lockyer's onto his next target. We'll go for the Temple of Kara here. More raiding on the way, and this place is more heavily defended than Tlencan, so perhaps not just an auto-resolve. Back down south. Well, I want to keep moving away from the army behind me, as mentioned. This was also the point when I kind of remembered, oh yeah, I'm still at war with the White Lizardman faction in this timeline as well, and thought actually if they showed up at the same time as me fighting Sotek, that could be difficult, and I can't get peace with them. But nothing else we can do, gonna have to risk that. So I go for Axolotl here with Yadus's army. Calling her Yadus, it's probably Jadus, but whatever. At first, I actually was really hesitant about this move because I thought I'll lose so many troops attacking this town that the other army pursuing me can come and then take out my damage force afterwards. What I wasn't taking into account is that Axolotl isn't a walled settlement, and I just didn't even notice. So actually that battle down there is much easier than it looks. But I still did this at the same time. This somewhat pointless siege was designed to make the enemy army go north instead of south to buy Yada some more space to move. But after I came down and initiated the Axolotl battle, I was like, oh yeah, it's only a minor settlement. So it's just a small field battle where we have an advantage, and it's an even bigger advantage than it looks like, because to start with, we'll be able to pound the enemy, meaning they'll be even more weak before this fight really gets going. They did have one little surprise for me. Their chameleon skinks got right up to my cav here off to the side and started attacking them. I couldn't see the skinks until they started firing, and then I also didn't see the skinks. I straight up didn't notice them doing this. It kind of looks like I'm reacting in the replay, but I assure you I did not notice that at all. I was just moving that unit to be closer to the action. I was probably looking at this over here, seeing how the shades would do as the enemy got close. And this is really good. When the enemy attack with like one unit out in front, that unit dies real fast and gets stun locked quite a lot by the bolts hitting. And the other units just aren't moving into range yet and aren't really doing anything. Tried to attack those skinks with the cav, although it didn't go very well and my cav routed. Same goes for the enemy cav by the looks of things. They did not do very well against the shades. And now all these skinks and lighter units will start moving up. If they skirmish with us, they're dead. They can waste ammo shooting at our sacrificial units, and then they'll just get killed themselves way faster, so that's all good for us. I summoned a Manticore to go distract their commander. It's just a hero commander, not an actual lord. And that's that really. Looks like some crows are going after some enemy skinks, and we just win sitting here doing nothing. Only one of their units actually got to our main army's position. It was this Stegodon, although it routed as soon as it took any damage really, and everything else was routing by that point as well. So, a real easy decisive victory, not at all the risky attack I thought this was going to be, where I was worried about being weak for a follow-up battle. We lost virtually nothing. That was probably the most one-sided fight we've seen so far. And now I have to decide what to do with the settlement. I almost again went for Occupy because I don't want it to rebel, but I really want the Golden Slave, so I just took it anyway, and if a rebellion happens we'll have to deal with it. Because this place is only at 0 public order, it will take a while before that happens anyway. The Surtek army does go back to come and take a look at my siege here. We don't want to fight this battle, so I retreat, but I was worried here. The retreat didn't go very far, and they are pursuing us. I thought we might have to fight the garrison as well as the army still, but luckily enough it's just the army, so we have ended up with this one-on-one battle. The balance bar says, well, maybe the enemy has something of an advantage in there. However, we have lots of shades under Shadesman, so maybe we have an unspoken advantage to use here. Right off the bat they hit us with the stellar attack thing, the thing that reduces the effect of ranged units. So nice to throw that onto our artillery, good thinking from the AI. But still, artillery will be slamming them from afar. Looks like I've forgotten to turn them onto multi-shot mode, so we're not doing very much against those usually very vulnerable skinks. But the shades with their extreme range are getting started as well. Had some harpies off to the enemy flank. I put them out there just to see if some of the enemy units would go and attack them, but they didn't. It was a planned and failed distraction. They're really not any use in the battle. Now they're coming at us here with these Sacred Croxagores, a nice super powerful melee unit. However, we're hitting them with so many bolts just raining down constantly that they're not only getting stun locked and they can't move forward, but they're dying. Maybe Shadesman's bonus for Shades was reload time? I really don't remember, so I probably haven't looked it up either by the time you see this video, meaning if you do remember, write it in the comments and then I'll know for future reference. Anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. Basically, the Shades are shooting and it's doing damage, and now the bolt throwers are back on multi-shot mode and they're going to be doing some damage to those nice blobs as well. Here you can see the effect of the enemy trying to skirmish with us. They move up the skinks, but the Shades just arc down shots and absolutely annihilate them. And here's the effect of the usual distractions. The Hydra's just standing here in the open, the enemy kind of get aggroed around it, giving us plenty more targets to shoot at. Same thing here on the flank, where these Dread Spears have got an okay fight against the enemy's Feral Cold Ones. They have a bonus against them. However, the regular Saurus Warrior's shields are more than enough to take down our Dread Spears. So I threw out our Death Hag as well to add to the tanking over here. The problem with using a Death Hag for tanking, I later realised after this battle, is that Death Hags have really bad defensive stats, so they're not really a tank at all. They're good because they're small, and that's helpful for our range tanking needs. So unlike the Hydra, perhaps the Death Hag doesn't take too much friendly fire, but still, she just takes regular damage. A Death Hag has lower defensive stats than even a generic unit of Dread Spears, as I later found out. You'll see why I'm finding that out in a second. In the center, we take on an enemy melee hero with our commander, but the enemy's commander walks past that fight and starts attacking the shades nearby, so that's a bit more dangerous. I'm not sure, maybe that guy is the Sotek faction leader or something. He seems pretty powerful. I think he might be a legendary lord of some variety. Our Hydra has taken a lot of damage facing off against some enemy spears. That was some bad tanking, but it has survived and the shades are doing their job. Here's the Hag back from her tanking duties with most of her health already gone actually. I'm throwing her in to fight against this melee hero because my commander didn't look like he's going to do it. I think my leader, Shadesman, is a ranged commander. He's a crossbow and sword type guy. But there's what happened to the Death Hag. The enemy legendary lord just comes at her and immediately kills her. So bad news. I was actually trying to pull the Death Hag back towards where the bolt throwers were, but she got attacked on the way while I wasn't looking, so that was unfortunate. Now we can take on the commander with everything else though, and because he's kind of been pushed to the back of our formation, our bolt throwers can directly attack him, sometimes at least, so that's going to help out with the damage. As for the rest of the battle, well, it's just winning itself in the background as our shades finish off the enemy while they try to clamber up the hill. There goes the enemy leader. Looks like we were taking plenty of friendly fire and lost another unit of spears right there, but overall, the battle was okay. We lost one full unit of spears and we lost our Death Hag, of course, and the enemy lost absolutely loads of stuff. Overall, a pretty good fight that was just soured by losses. The Death Hag can be replaced, but it's just more difficult than with a regular unit because they get replaced at low level and far away, so it will take a while to get them back. I guess I could replace her with something more suitable this time though. I got this random alliance with a Beastman faction. No idea where they were, but they were at war with most of the same people as me, so that seems like a nice alliance to have. And then of course they go on with Shadesman to just finish off what was left from the Sotek army, and that's that. Now we can start thinking about going back to the settlement, although ideally with other troops nearby to help. This trash stack could be the ones to do that, they're just to the north. But for this turn at least they were busy taking down some Skaven rebels, which all went fine. As for Lockyer, he arrives at the Temple of Kara. The garrison is bigger than Tlenkan, so we can't just auto-resolve our way in this time, and this is actually a walled settlement, so we have to deal with the siege. But I thought, well, we might as well do this one manually, because I don't trust that enemy army to have any strength. They've got some presence on the balance bar, but I was pretty sure that with a dragon on our side, taking the walls will be easy, and then we'll just shoot everything up as much as we can. I'm doing the standard attacking move, you know the drill by now, rushing down the edge of the map with our sacrificable Dread Spears up front to tank shots for the shades. Lockyer is kind of lazily going in at the other side of town, although I just brought him over to help with the fight because there was no point in him being there. Now here was an actual bit of strategy. I tried to attack the gatehouse by first having these Dark Shard shields tank the tower shots while the bolt throwers take out the towers, and then the Hydra will run in to attack the gate and open up a space for us to go through with the Hydra and the chariot. And check this out, that's a rare moment. The breath attack worked today. I try it in most battles, as I've said it usually doesn't work, but today it straight up happened and it kills like half a unit. It's really powerful when it does work. Also popped down a Sword of Cain to finish off the survivors. Here goes our attack on the wall, going to be leading with the Dread Spears and having Lockyer stamp on the enemy as well. We don't really need much here because it's mostly ranged stuff we're fighting. We've got our melee hero in there, but he's forgotten his sword. I think he's just holding his hands hoping that nobody notices. Luckily for him, he can punch the nearby skinks out just the same without his weapon. So that's going fine, and basically we're going to wreck a whole bunch of units up on that wall and take control of it. Over with the Hydra plan, it wasn't as good as I thought because the skinks on top of the wall can shoot down through it at the gate, similar to an effect noted earlier in this campaign. So I figured I'd be totally safe in the little alcove, but no, that is not the case. My shades are arcing some shots over the wall to take out stuff that's been tanked onto my hero down here. That will work very nicely. Lockyer's also killed enough stuff to charge up another Sword of Cain, and we absolutely wreck a couple of units coming over to investigate as well. That might have been 2 units trying to escape, can't remember. Basically, we killed a load of stuff for free. That's a very useful spell. Once we'd established a bit of control, we can move on to a more sophisticated strategy. Here's me admiring these bubbles. The reflections on the surface of those bubbles were quite impressive, I thought. Here's the strategy. We've got shades on the wall, shades on the ground, a line of guys with spears and shields to defend them, and now anything that gets near us will just get absolutely annihilated, with some help from the web as well to stop this routing unit getting away. So they kept coming towards us, dying, routing, going away, then coming back from routing and charging at us. And in that fashion we killed a whole bunch of enemy stuff. We also did open up that gate with the Hydra eventually, and Lockyer goes over to help out with the fight. And then our shade and shield wall strategy moves forward towards the capture point. Their cav was sitting here and just got shot for a while. Then the replay says it's a valiant defeat. It just kind of ended prematurely, but we went on to also shade everything else to death. And that ended the battle in a victory, in fact, so we've captured this settlement really easily, actually. My lack of faith in a shades-based army to attack walls isn't really justified, because they do have a lot of potential for shooting over the wall and damaging things waiting behind, so they're not really wasted in the initial phase. Anyway, as for the next possible move, well, we can go in two directions. There's an enemy settlement to the southwest, and there are 3 enemy settlements to the north, the surprise northern group that I found out about much earlier in the campaign to my chagrin. So where do we go from here? Well, at first I thought I could end the war, and there is a moderate chance of getting it, so maybe I can bribe them into peace or something. However, I didn't really want to do this because I thought we can probably take another one of their territories up there, so I'll keep the war going. But in retrospect, maybe I should have ended it right there, because on the very next turn, Gorok reappears and attacks Axolotl, so the stuff we gained from the Cult of Sotek will now just be immediately lost. If we'd ended the war just before, I might have hung on to it, but now, not only do we have to deal with that lost territory, but Gorok is going to come up and interfere with the armies trying to get into the settlement just to the north, and that's going to be a real hassle. Why don't we find out how much of a hassle that's going to be, and see what happens when more Eats the Stuff shows up to join the fun in the next part.